faithfully conveying value and interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Club. Today's book we're discussing is called Controlling Nature, a book about disasters. Over the past 30 years, global natural disasters have caused an average of over 50,000 deaths and more than $140 billion in property damage annually. We have the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, the 2005 New Orleans floods, and the 2008 Wenchuan earthquake. The devastation from these natural disasters remains vivid in our memories to this day. We Chinese have a saying, man can conquer nature, meaning humans can surely use wisdom and strength to control and overcome nature. But why, with technology so advanced now? Are we still so fragile before nature? After hearing today's Controlling Nature, you'll find the answer. The author is American nonfiction master John McPhee, a Pulitzer winner and American Academy of Arts and Letters recipient with 30-plus works. Controlling Nature is his first Chinese translated book and among his representative nonfiction works. In Controlling Nature, McPhee objectively documents 3 modern cases of humans battling nature: fighting mudslides, floods, and controlling volcanoes. Did humanity prevail? First case, we'll start with mudslides in Los Angeles, California. Speaking of LA, you might picture star-studded Hollywood or the Lakers. Called the City of Angels, it's America's second largest city after New York. Yet this bustling metropolis faces multiple natural disaster threats, including mudslides. In 1978, the Genophile family lived midway up LA's San Gabriel Mountains. East of LA, these mountains offer fresh air, scenic views overlooking the city and Pacific. The head of household, Bob Genophile, was a building contractor who'd constructed many dams. Building his home, he used the strongest materials then available, making it sturdier than any California dam, truly a fortress. One February night in 1978, the Genophiles heard strange mountain noises. Through their window, they saw a dark mass like a small hill moving from the peak toward their home. Why? Mudslides carry massive amounts of mud and rocks, making them extremely destructive. At this point, the Genophile family had no time to escape, but they didn't want to run away. They believed their house was stronger than a dam and could withstand the mudslide. But they were wrong. When the mudslide struck, the walls and roof of this house were indeed sturdy and didn't collapse. However, the doors and windows were instantly destroyed. Water-carrying mud and rocks rushed into the house and kept accumulating. The family had to stand on the bed, and eventually, the mud piled up almost to the ceiling. Everyone was trapped in the mud, with the youngest child submerged up to the neck. Fortunately, the mudslide weakened at that moment, allowing the family to narrowly escape disaster. It wasn't until the next day that they were found and rescued by a rescue team. By then, their yard was not only filled with mud and boulders, but also piled with more than a dozen cars that had washed down from the hillside. And so all these cars were crushed together by the mudslide. On average, every 10 years, a major mudslide disaster occurs in the suburbs of Los Angeles. There are 4 reasons why this area is a hotspot for mudslides. First, the San Gabriel Mountains are tall and steep, rising over 3,000 meters above the Los Angeles plains. The terrain is rugged, with slopes reaching 65 to 70 degrees, even 90 degrees in some places, making it very conducive for mudslides to move rapidly downhill. And second, this area experiences frequent earthquakes, as the Los Angeles region sits at the boundary between the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. So, the San Gabriel Mountains are a product of plate collision. Therefore, constant earthquakes, both large and small, cause the mountain rocks to fracture continuously, providing ample ammunition for mudslides. Third, the arid climate often triggers wildfires and sudden heavy rains.
Los Angeles has a typical Mediterranean climate, with hot, dry summers and rainfall only in winter.
In summary, the relatively dry climate frequently causes wildfires in the San Gabriel Mountains. Fires not only fracture rocks like earthquakes, but also burn shrubs, creating large areas of charred soil. If this charred soil encounters heavy rain, it absorbs water fully, leading to landslides or even mudslides. Fourth, the population in the San Gabriel Mountains area keeps increasing. The main urban area of Los Angeles is located on a narrow plain between the Pacific Ocean and the San Gabriel Mountains. As the population grows, urban development has gradually extended into the mountains since the late 19th and early 20th centuries. After Thoreau's Walden became popular in America, many Los Angeles residents embraced a pastoral lifestyle and chose to build homes in the San Gabriel Mountains to control mudslides and protect Los Angeles residents. In 1915, the Los Angeles Flood Control District was established. They first used concrete to reinforce river channels and mountain slopes. The San Gabriel Mountains have numerous rivers. Heavy rainfall can cause sediment buildup on riverbanks, potentially blocking channels. Blocked rivers may then collapse mountainsides, triggering mudslides. No. Therefore, the Flood Control District dredged mountain river channels and reinforced banks with concrete to ensure smooth flow during intense storms. Additionally, they reinforced landslide-prone slopes with concrete. Beyond slope reinforcement, they built many sediment basins, structures designed to settle out sand and rocks. This initiative began in the 1930s after a major mudslide. People noticed houses below a gravel pit escaped damage because the mudslide flowed into an uphill pit, drastically reducing its force. Inspired by this, the Flood Control District began constructing numerous sediment basins. These sediment basins are distributed throughout the San Gabriel Mountains, near mudslide-prone gullies and above residential areas. They're typically deep pits, tens of meters deep, varying in size.
Basin walls are usually reinforced concrete structures that can withstand massive impacts.
The Flood Control District was highly confident, and sediment basins indeed block some small-scale mudslides. For example, Mount Madre in the San Gabriel Mountains has a sediment basin on its slope.
During the 1978 mudslide, this basin blocked hundreds of tons of sediment and rocks, preventing casualties.
However, the San Gabriel Mountains are vast. Not all areas have sediment basins, and even where present, mudslides may bypass them, rendering them ineffective. For instance, the same 1978 mudslide that struck the Genophile family wasn't stopped by any sediment basin. Moreover, many sediment basins have limited capacity, built to standards for mudslides occurring once every decade or two. Facing huge mudslides helplessly, what's more worrying is that sediment basins pile up tens of thousands of cubic meters of mud and rocks needing cleanup. But cleaning them is super messy, and the cleared stuff often has nowhere to go. Heck, some even get hauled back into the mountains, likely fueling new mudslides. In the 20th century, major mudslides in LA's mountains hit every decade, each time killing at least dozens of people. Now, in the 21st century, LA mudslides still grab headlines all the time. The latest bad mudslide in LA struck on January 9, 2018. Oh man, it killed 17, hurt 25, and left 24 missing. Yeah, these disasters keep happening. They're not under control. And pray. All right, that wraps up the first case in the book. The LA flood control folks tried controlling mudslides with stuff like sediment basins, but hey, they didn't fully prevent the disasters. Now, let's move on to the book's second case. Americans tackling Mississippi River floods. See, floods are way more common than mudslides. Any place with a river faces flood threats. Well, in a world without humans, river flooding is just natural, you know? The mud in river water builds up into floodplains, feeding rich soil that supports tons of plants and critters. Meanwhile, natural rivers ain't got dams. They're wide with banks full of wetlands and floodplains. Wetlands hold water all year, and floodplains are like river edges, dry when water's low, flooded when high, becoming part of the river. So both help spread out floods. Take the Mississippi, America's biggest river. When Spaniards first showed up in the 1500s, they saw spots where the river, plus swamps and floodplains, stretched over 100 kilometers wide, like an ocean. To live there, they had to tame the river, drain those areas, turn them into farms, and build towns. So the settlers started building dams to narrow the river. They also set up shipping on the river, downstream on the Mississippi. Lots of towns boomed over time. By the 18th century, New Orleans at the mouth of the Mississippi River had become a major economic hub and port city in America. After the American Civil War in the 19th century, the U.S. established the Mississippi River Commission, directly managed by the Army Corps of Engineers. Its main mission was to further reinforce the Mississippi's dams, prevent floods, and protect the river. In 1882, a massive flood hit the Mississippi. Levees failed at 284 locations along the riverbanks, with floodwater spreading over 100 kilometers beyond the river channels, and then tiers urged to murder. The Corps believed this catastrophe was due to insufficiently high and weak dams, so they doubled down on their levee strategy, raising them higher every year. By the 1920s, the levees had been raised to 6 times their original height. But seriously, could endlessly building taller levees really control the river and prevent floods? In 1927, a basin-wide flood overwhelmed the Mississippi. Water breached the levees, submerged over 60,000 square kilometers for 3 months, causing massive loss of human and livestock lives. The levee control strategy had failed. The core problem? Artificially cramming a natural river between narrow levees. During floods, the confined water level skyrocketed, massively increasing gravitational potential energy and the flood's destructive power. So, the Corps reconsidered, planning to reduce pressure on the main channel by creating flood diversion channels. Ironically, these very diversion channels created risk of the Mississippi changing course downstream. River course changes happen naturally. The Mississippi's lower reaches shift about once every 1,000 years on average. Its last shift was roughly a millennium ago, and now it might redirect to the Atchafalaya River. For simplicity, I'll call the Atchafalaya River the A River from now on. The A River originally ran parallel to the lower Mississippi, also flowing southward. Historically, a connecting channel called the Old River linked the A River and Mississippi, and maps the A River, Mississippi, and Old River form an H shape. The A River is the left vertical stroke. The Mississippi is the right vertical stroke, and the Old River is the connecting horizontal bar. Because of this link, when Mississippi floods, the A River helps divert floodwaters, which is why the Corps dredged its channel. But unexpectedly, this actually accelerated the Mississippi River's diversion to the A River. Because the terrain of the A River channel is naturally lower than that of the Mississippi River, it has the potential to divert. Additionally, the A River is an incising river, meaning its riverbed is soft, so the bottom is constantly eroded and lowered by water flow. After dredging, the flow speed of the A River increased, intensifying the trend of riverbed incision. Water flows downhill. If uncontrolled, the Mississippi River is likely to abandon its original downstream channel and flow through the lower terrain Old River Channel and A River to the sea. You might think, just let the Mississippi River divert. Isn't river diversion a natural law? However, the lower Mississippi is a vital industrial area in the U.S. Major cities in Louisiana, like New Orleans, are built along the river, and without the freshwater resources and convenient transportation provided by the Mississippi, these cities would likely decline rapidly. New Orleans ports would cease to exist. Moreover, river diversion would cause a massive increase in the A River's flow, potentially destroying some low-lying towns downstream. The Corps represents U.S. national interests and certainly wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. So, in 1963, they began building dams on the old river to regulate the water of both rivers and prevent diversion. A major flood 10 years later proved that this attempt to control the Mississippi's diversion also failed. And in 1973, another major flood hit the Mississippi, severely impacting the old river dam. Although the dam wasn't washed away, its base was eroded with many large holes, and the foundation was almost hollowed out. Key equipment like diversion walls and floodgates were destroyed, rendering the entire dam useless. After this, the Corps gradually repaired the dam and built multiple dams and other water projects on the old river. The Corps firmly believes it can control the Mississippi River and prevent diversion away from New Orleans. New Orleans will continue to prosper, but most geologists disagree. For example, geologist Fred Smith believes that the Mississippi's diversion is highly likely in the future. The Corps is only delaying it, and how long depends on nature. In 2005, the lower Mississippi region, including New Orleans, was struck by Hurricane Katrina. During the storm, flood defenses were breached, causing floods that killed over 1,800 people. City infrastructure was destroyed, and masses of people moved away from New Orleans. Even though the Mississippi hasn't changed course yet, this city has already lost its prosperity. That concludes the book's second case. The U.S. Army Corps tried controlling Mississippi floods and course changes through dams, but didn't succeed either. They say fire and water show no mercy. Well, the first two cases were both about water. The last case happened in Iceland. Let's see if humans can control volcanoes. Iceland sits in the northern Atlantic near the Arctic Circle, where active tectonic movements bring rich geothermal resources. So Iceland's warmer than other same latitude areas, but that active crust also covers the whole country with dangerous volcanoes. In 1983, Hekla volcano in southern Iceland erupted violently, killing nearly 10,000 people, almost half Iceland's population back then. In 1962, Iceland's Civil Defense Committee formed, partly to control natural disasters, including volcanoes. Less than a year after the committee started, an undersea eruption happened southeast of Reykjavik, the capital. This eruption lasted 3.5 years, with lava forming a new island. Just as Icelanders celebrated the new island, on January 22, 1973, Eldfell volcano on Jaime Island in the same waters erupted too. So this grabbed all of Iceland's attention. Though Jaime is just 13 square kilometers, it had 5,000 residents and was Iceland's economic lifeline. Its surrounding waters were Iceland's prime fishing grounds. Fish exports made up 3/4 of national income. The port on Jaime's north coast was also southern Iceland's best, contributing 1/21 of national export revenue. Thankfully, Eldfell produced thick, slow-moving lava. Plus, being on Jaime's east coast, most lava flowed through an eastern crater breach into the ocean. The port sat north of the volcano, on the island's northern coast. The town where most islanders lived was northwest of the volcano. Therefore, after the volcanic eruption, the port and town weren't immediately threatened by the lava. But over time, the eruption intensified, and the scorching lava slowly advanced north along the island's east coast, nearing the port. Facing the scorching lava, people's usual approach was to evacuate.
But Iceland's Civil Defense Committee wanted to save the port, vital to Iceland's economy. So they called an Icelandic physicist, Thorvaldur.
Thorvaldur was the director of Iceland's National Research Council, a key figure in the country's scientific community. What's more, in the 1960s, he proposed a bold idea, using water to cool the hot lava, solidifying it to stop its movement. This idea was seen as a joke by many Icelanders. Mockingly, some said Thorvaldur was urinating on lava, but the Civil Defense Committee had no better plan, so they brought him in to declare war on the flowing lava with water. This battle was named the Pump Water to Cool Lava Operation. In February 1973, this battle officially began. Initially, the committee organized a water pumping team of dozens, using water cannons to cool the edges of the lava on the periphery. The flowing magma reached temperatures up to 1,000 degrees Celsius. Only by lowering the temperature below 800 degrees Celsius could a hard crust form on the lava's edge. Because the magma behind had tremendous force, the crust was quickly crushed and the lava continued flowing forward. So bulldozers came into play. People drove them onto the lava edges, stood on them, and sprayed water into the lava flow, hoping to solidify it completely.
According to Thorvalder's calculations, 1 cubic meter of water could solidify 0.6 cubic meters of hot lava into rock.
Facing the massive lava flow, a huge amount of water was needed. Fortunately, seawater is inexhaustible. Large numbers of pumps were continuously brought to the island, and hundreds joined the battle, starting a long tug of war. The water spring teams not only had to work nonstop, but also faced dangers like high heat, volcanic ash, toxic gases, and magma ejected skyward, which, when cooled, could form volcanic bombs falling on their heads. What was even more frustrating was that spraying water could only solidify the lava flow at certain points, but the lava would quickly bypass those spots and continue forward. Meanwhile, the eruption showed no signs of weakening. The lava ultimately swallowed part of Jaime's port facilities.
Buildings destroyed by lava on land could be rebuilt, but if the harbor waters got blocked, the port would be permanently ruined. People discovered a pumice mass covering over 30,000 square meters and weighing 2 million tons, gradually drifting toward the port.
Pumice is floating rock. When lava hits seawater, rapid cooling creates air pockets, making it less dense than water. It floats like an iceberg.
If this mass reached the port and fused with shore lava, the harbor would be completely blocked and useless.
Fire boats were called to Jaime, constantly spraying and cutting the massive pumice until the floating mountain finally broke apart and stopped. But more lava poured toward the port. What was once an 800-meter wide bay narrowed to just a 150-meter channel. Just as one crisis eased, another emerged. After a month, lava suddenly burst through a northwest vent, directly threatening the town. Despite desperate water spraying to halt the flow, the lava still consumed houses closest to the volcano. Throughout this battle, control remained with the volcano. Intense eruptions lasted 2 months until April, when weakening finally stopped the lava's advance. The civil defense and residents finally breathed easier, though half the town was already swallowed by lava. That July, after 5.5 months, the volcano fully ceased erupting. Summing up this war against lava flow, Iceland's National Emergency Center declared the water spraying effective and a victory. But many disagreed. Some argued that water blocking the original eastward lava flow diverted it northwest instead. The spraying didn't prevent disaster. It just relocated it elsewhere. Human attempts to control volcanic lava are like a mantis trying to stop a chariot or an ant shaking a tree, utterly overestimating themselves. With that, we've covered all 3 cases of humanity trying to control nature. Mudslides, floods, and volcanic eruptions are natural phenomena, but as humans spread globally and try to dominate Earth, they threaten our survival and become what we call natural disasters. With advancing technology, humans attempt to control and conquer nature. We hoped this would prevent disasters, but as seen in these cases, humanity ultimately failed. Rather than controlling nature, we should understand it better, follow its laws, hold it in reverence, and keep a respectful distance. Perhaps only then can we truly coexist in harmony with nature. That concludes our interpretation of controlling nature. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.